the piano and we ask them to come up so that they can practice and get familiar with the piano. That's good. See, you practice it. That was good practice. Now, next time, you'll play even better. Even better. So, walk over there and sit on the side of mine. Sit on the side of mine. Okay? Mm-hmm.
I said my turn out.
You say you want to? Well, that's not a bad idea. Problem is...
No, I'm bad. I'm bad. Mom. Like this one.
Son.
Wait.
Is this Michael Jackson time?
No. I said I was just treating him like a look.
You just what? Let's see, Mr. Keith is ready now. So, have a seat. Have a seat. Have a seat.
But I gotta wait for him. They haven't called me.
That's right. And when he calls you, you get up from your seat. So right now, you sit down.
I like to also say that I'm excited about being here, about what the progress that these students that I have made. This is not by far all of them. Some of them found some kind of problem today for some reason. But I am really pleased with those who came to show their talent and what they learned, and to let you know that they are trying to give them the exposure that they need to become musicians, which is to perform in front of people. We hope this will be a good experience for them. We have rewards for everyone that participates. We want you to understand that playing the piano is not an easy thing for some people, and also playing before someone is even sometimes more difficult than actually playing itself. So I'm hoping that you bear with them. I know that they're all good. They're all qualified to do what they've come to do. They've worked hard throughout this past year. When I say year, I'm talking about since August, and some have come in since then. Some even started in February, some started in January of this year. So some of them are really new at this, and most are probably less than 2 years with myself, taking music from me. And of course, some came from other places and also studied with other teachers. I want you to give them all of your attention and all your praise, because that's what it takes for them to be successful. Many times we think that just sending them there will do it, but it's the environment that they're exposed to at home which cultivates the learning along with the skills that are being taught, the things that they're exposed to musically, physically, mentally, and a lot of times even our positive assistance. When I say positive, I mean in order assisting students in a way that they feel good about what they do, which is what my position is, and to lead them along the way. And you as parents, rather, hopefully you are giving them the positive feedback that they need in their learning, in their studies, and the things that they're doing. Make sure, by all means, that whatever we do, and we reinforce that it is positive, and that we are exposing them to good music. It's okay to listen to rap music. It's okay to listen to gospel, blues, jazz. I listen to all of it. And I wouldn't consider myself a musician if I didn't do that. Right now it's time for me to start to learn how to play some rap music, because it hasn't gone away. It's still here. And I was really surprised that rap music has lasted this long. So somewhere along down the line, maybe 100 years from now, it will have its place in music. So we cannot ignore it. Just like at one time rock and roll was considered a thing of a fad that would go by soon, but it made a mark in music history, just as the songs that we can't really relate to, such as rapping, but it's playing an important role in music. But there are also other standard types of songs that are considered standard, such as classical songs, jazz, new wave, etc., and on and on. And we have to expose these students to all types of music, not just piano music, not just this kind of music, not just the kind of music you like, not just the kind of music I like. I'm not teaching music I like. I'm teaching music that hopefully they will enjoy. Hopefully you will instill in them the same values and ideals that I have. At this time, I'm going to be proud to present our first musician We have several that are not here, maybe they'll come later. If not, we will continue the program as follows. Hopefully everyone has a program to follow along with us. I will call your name, they will play one selection of the two, and then they will come back and play the other selection after we go through each person. They will come back again and play the second song. So at this time, Tasha Aldridge is not here. She was to play Beethoven Sonatina, and so therefore we go to gemeral, who will play Old MacDonald. Well, Old MacDonald first. Would you give him a big hand? forget anyone, did everyone get to play that came, someone that came and I not see them? I like, first of all, say we need to give all of them a big hand for coming up. As I call your name, I would like for you to come up. This is no way of reward as to their efforts and accomplishments that they've made. But I do want to show my appreciation for them being here, for their participating. So I would like for these people to come up, which are gemeral bearer. Outstanding musician piano recital, June 3rd, 1989. Next one goes to Dwayne Lee and also says the same thing. Sometimes we have to put a little weight on it to make them hang in there, and you see how it has paid off. And this goes to Shamika Mitchell, and it says most improved piano recital, June 3rd. We also have some other medals for some other people who have also shown a great deal of improvement. We're going to let you all have a seat until he comes back, and we will get you those, and we will be completing our recital. In the meantime, in case you have not had time to read the letter that I sent out to you, I will give you a little bit of insight on that. The location of the study of music will be at 4822 Dove Creek Way, which is in Oak Cliff, off of Swansea and Brook Valley. Also, we will be continuing our studies throughout the summer until July the 20th. And also, we have a new schedule. It hasn't changed much, but because so many people were going out of town for the holidays, I had to consolidate it to 2 days. I may have had to move somebody an hour later or 30 minutes earlier. And if it's a problem, do let me know when it's over. You may pick these up as you leave and make sure that there's no problem with the schedule. And 2 people people on Monday. I had to change them to Thursday because several people on the Monday time will be in and out for the summer. So that is strictly for convenience, and when the fall comes around on August the 14th, we will resume our regular schedule, and I hope that everyone will continue what they're doing. Thank you.
gemeral.
No.
Perhaps one of the important sources is that legacy which comes out of the Harlem Renaissance. That movement in the 1920s when African American artists, perhaps for the very first time, thought about unity of form, about putting themselves in a position to influence imagery in the future. The Harlem Renaissance was pivotal in many ways particularly for African American artists, because it gave them the trust, the confidence to know that they had a role to play in the larger picture of American art. They could move into their own history and their own past, and this is what they captured, and this is what they capitalized upon.
Two artists who recorded events important to their African American heritage are Aaron Douglas and Hale Woodruff. Douglas created a mural for the Texas Centennial Exposition of 1936 on the subject of slavery.
I can hear the sounds of the chains as my forefathers are taken away. Down to the ship, waiting out at sea, against their will, they were dragged away. I can hear the sounds of the whiplash against my forefathers' back. I can see the pain on their faces as they leave.
Here we see a set of sketches Woodruff painted for murals at Talladega College in Alabama. The subject is a little-known chapter in American history. A group from Sierra Leone was successful in their mutiny, taking over their slave ship bound for Cuba. Diverted to Connecticut, they were eventually allowed to return to Sierra Leone. The artistic legacy of Africa has been profoundly creative and essentially spiritual. This legacy has been developed in two ways. Untrained artists calling unconsciously on their African roots have created a distinctive kind of African American folk art. Quilts, yard art, bottle trees, walking sticks, Mardi Gras floats, and costumes, works made from scraps and found objects, have become the traditional forms of popular art. Folk artists like Bill Traylor have continued African traditions of animal and snake figures from folklore. This Haitian drum is decorated with a great serpent, which represents Dambala, the Haitian god of life.
What we see in self-taught artists, those motifs that have been described as Africanisms, really are expressions of the artist's awareness in some cases and unconscious expression in other cases of, again, those motifs, traditions, aspects of narrative and folktale that have been passed on from one generation to the next. And these ideas emerge from the hands of these self-taught artists.
Trained artists have used African art as a source of inspiration since the late 19th century. African American artists have adapted many of its forms, as we see in this sensitive portrayal of a young African man in a sculpture by Nancy Elizabeth Prophet. African masks have been the inspiration for Sergeant Johnson and Malvin Gray Johnson, who used masks as a connection between his self-portrait and African culture. David Miller Jr. carved a portrait in wood that is distinctively African, a portrait of proud consciousness. Artist Lois Mailou Jones has represented in her long career the entire spectrum of artistic involvement with African themes. Her stylized Egyptian forms of the 1930s have evolved into the symbolic images of the young women she paints today.
The process of reclamation, which really was the conscious embrace by African American artists of their African heritage, began actually during the Harlem Renaissance, when Alain Locke, the great philosopher, wrote a very important essay entitled The Legacy of the Ancestral Arts. And it was at that point that he challenged Black American artists to look beyond European modernism and into their own cultural heritage for inspiration. And you find artists like Lois Mailou Jones and Aaron Douglas, who even as early as the mid-30s were interpreting African culture. In this process continued through the 50s, and then in the 60s there was this great eruption of interest and effort and consciousness awakening on the part of Black artists, particularly those in the urban North. And this led to groups like Wayusi Afro-Cobra, who organized in art circles and set as their own mandates the idea that they wanted to spread African culture and awareness of African culture through their art, through popular public art such as the mural. They had shows within the community, in churches and storefronts, all in an effort to make people aware of their connection to their past. And in addition to that, there was a great deal of travel on the part of Black artists to the motherland, as it came to be known. And that personal contact with the continent, I think, reinforced the kind of study and discussion that had been going on since the 1930s.
The African tradition of inspired vision has been present in the African American community since the beginning. That tradition extends to the works of both trained and untrained artists in the Americas. Their works express a divine inspiration which the artists regard as a visual extension of their spiritual beliefs.
Beyond a shadow of a doubt, my inspiration comes from God.
You see, I see that even in the midst of decay and destruction and pain and suffering, there's always hope.
I can be sitting up meditating, whether not looking at the clouds or looking at a tree, and I see part in that I can make art out of.
The image of a dog riding a fish is inspired by a Haitian folk tale. Murat Briere creates a metal sculpture from a shark story meant to prevent children from swimming in the ocean alone. Bessie Harvey describes its fanciful depiction as the haves and the have-nots. Her combining of a young tree branch with added materials is a collaboration which she acknowledges between herself, God, and nature. Another artist who is sensitive to nature is Willard Watson.
Every piece of wood that I like, that I think I can make something out. When I pass something, I generally pass it 3 times. The 3rd time, I'll pick it up. But then I'll be successful in making something out of it. Like the snakes I do make can be a limb on a tree. So, in other words, nature have to be done gave me something for me to create it. He have to be done gave me something to finish. See, I'm not like a great deal of artists. They can take a piece of wood and carve anything they want out of it. I don't do that. Nature gives me part of it, and I'll finish it up from where it is. That's the reason nobody can duplicate my art, because nature not going to create it that way 2 times. If it do, you're going to have to go to a different part of the earth to find it. So anytime I make something, it's just one of a kind.
Certain African cultures, including the Fang of Gabon, believe that the ability to see everything is a very special private vision. This idea is represented in the works of Sultan Rogers and David Miller Sr., a native of Jamaica. Miller was an extremely religious man throughout his life.
Ideas just come to me, and sometimes I could see figures in my head. I sometimes go to bed and I dream about different figures, and I would get up out of my bed, but maybe 2 o'clock in the morning, or 3 o'clock, and go in the basement and started it. When we get this house, I like to see place look beautiful, and I want to see something that I haven't seen other places. So ideas come to me how to do these things. So I said, people are going to say, this guy is crazy. What's the matter with him? But I said, I won't make no one discourage me. So people tell me I've been doing a beautiful job.
Many African figures share a sense of sacred presence with works by a number of African-American artists. This Yambe figure recognizes the human figure as a sacred shrine, much as Renee Stout's container evokes a sacred presence.
Everything that I think and feel as Renee Stout on a daily basis, what I deal with in life on a daily basis, is coming through. I feel that the work that I am doing now is almost like an open journal. It's like when I did the piece, I was in a sort of down state. I wasn't feeling very good about what was going on in my life at the time, and nobody knew I was an artist, and I'm just working quietly. The bags have messages in them, and I've long since forgotten what I wrote, but at the time they were things that I needed to put down on paper to sort of make it a reality and to fold it inside and to have this there forever, having a sense of security.
Houston Conwell presents a sense of African ritual in his own work. He is inspired by the house facades of the Dogon, who build niches in the exterior walls for family members to place offerings to honor their ancestors.
Welcome to My Ghetto Land really speaks to our people living in the urban landscape. To me, a tenement becomes like a nation of people all living their lives from life to death, going through those various cycles. It becomes a very colorful place because of the way that our people tend to express themselves. We see a young girl dressed in white as if she is about to be initiated into a women's society. The woman who stands in the doorway welcomes us to participate in the activity which is going on. It's probably the most important thing in the icon are the two figures which appear to be black in color. These pygmies are among the oldest of the cultural groups within the African continent. They are an essential part of the whole icon because they uplift the tenement. It's like there's the spirit of the ancestors have placed that legacy in our bodies. It's not something that's contrived, that we seem to be able to express ourselves because that is what we are.
Eagle.
After World War II, African-American artists began to travel to African countries. There was the desire to personally experience African inspiration. These artists were greeted with the rich cultural life thriving in the newly independent nations of Nigeria, Ghana, and Senegal.
I learned what self-identity meant, and I saw people that we were calling illiterate who had self-identity, who knew who they were. And this was one of the greatest experiences I'd ever had. So in Ghana, at this festival, when I saw these kings there, I was able to pull three to do my story of the three kings that had been with me since childhood. So this is what I'm trying to show, that there's great wisdom, there's great human warmth and understanding, there's great comfort again. The Starry Crown is actually a story about quilting. And the women in my family, my mother, aunts, grandmother, all of them made quilts. One of the most beautiful concepts of poetry to me in music is to see women, poor women, making these quilts and putting such wonderful beauty and love into them in the worst kind of poverty, and yet they make these quilts to cover their children. Also, today I realize these were my first lessons in art.
I was in Tanzania for a short while, but I was primarily in Uganda. And I met all the different people from the neighboring area. But I'm just say that it's so complex to explain the influence of the art on me. It's really come through my involvement with the religion, because that is where the philosophy and the substance of the art and culture for me. It is the more intangible thing that you realize rather than the very physical presence. So, but Moonlight came out of other works I was doing, and then two works particularly begin to form themselves in a way that conjure my imagination concerning the traditional religion in West Uganda.
This sculpture by Bessie Harvey, entitled Tribal Spirits, expresses Harvey's interest in her own past, especially her spiritual heritage. The artist interprets the bird which soars above the group as a symbol of peace and harmony.
Africa to me is a place that I would like to go back and see, but like though I've never really been to Africa, is I feel that that is part of my home. And I really feel very strongly into doing the Egyptian art, and I feel as if that I am a king from the past. Sometimes I can dream about a certain art piece to create, but it is missing something. And so maybe that next night or the next month, the other product coming, then I would put all of the dreams together to do a nice art piece. I would say what really keeps me going in creating with my art is to give someone a piece of my art, and it makes me feel good inside to see someone happy.
When when I read about Africa and think about Africa and look at African art, it just continues to inspire me. So that's what it continues to be, a spiritual influence. I have never been to Africa, and most people, upon seeing my work, assume that I have been, and I have never been. I don't understand where it's coming from, that connection. You know, I feel it, but I can't put my finger on it. I can't explain it. This piece was a conscious effort to make a self-portrait, because having moved to Washington, D.C. and being shocked into this environment that was so different from Pittsburgh, I needed a sense of, you know, something strong to, you know, I needed a powerful image for myself. And in building this, I felt that I gave myself a sort of power and a constant reminder that I could deal with and handle anything that was going on around me and any new situation that could come up in this new environment that was, you know, sort of hard for me to understand. The pieces come from the environment that I'm in, whether it's a smashed bottle cap that I find on the ground while I'm walking, or a rusty washer, you know, or material that I've found. I'm taking pieces from that environment and adding it to this to create that sort of power over that environment. I've always been intrigued and interested by the African power objects or fetishes that have the, you know, the bags and the stomach cavity covered with substances. That power and that sense of mystery. You know, so many, the young people feel like they have no control or no power. You know, it's like I had this idea and I accomplished something. I did it, you know, and this is what I do through my art every day. And I want them to know that it can be done, you know, no matter what you're doing, not just through art, but, you know, through anything that you're committed to.
African-American artists have interpreted their ancestral roots in many different ways. Many artists have chosen to create works that have close parallels to African art. Charles Searle stumbled across his artistic roots when he sought refuge in a museum from a snowstorm.
And I was so cold and so tired, I stopped in the University of Pennsylvania Museum. As I walked through the museum, just kind of gazing at the various artifacts there, I walked into this one particular room. And this room was called the African Room, the Room of African Sculpture. To me, it was awesome. Of course, back then, I didn't use the word awesome, but it was awesome. It was like, it just stopped me in my tracks. I was speechless. It was overwhelming. It was all-powerful. And I was sort of frightened by it all. I had never seen African artwork before, except my only feeling about Africa that I had at the time was through Tarzan movies. And of course, this was a total surprise for me to walk into this room and look at all these sculptures. And the thing that I found to be like really interesting is the fact that some of them looked like me. And I bought some books on African sculpture. And I began to research more and more, and at the same time, I began to take my untrained artistic work towards the African feeling or African flavor. I actually would go to the museum and just make sketches of some of the pieces there. Back in 1980, I was asked to be in a show entitled Afro-American Abstractions, and at that time, I had reached a level where I was only doing sculpture and painted wood sculpture. So I designed a piece, the piece entitled The Flight of My Father is really like a bird form that is free. Birds we think of as something that's being free and flying away. And I'm really saying that the flight of my ancestors. So really that's what the flight of my father sort of means to me.
Ed Love's mask is an African-American expression of the African masking tradition. Here his mask for Mingus pays tribute to the monumental, sharp, hard-edged music of Charlie Mingus. This mask, by Vusi Maduna, echoes the mystery of the African mask. In African culture, metal materials give sculpture a sense of permanency and strength. Rip Woods is inspired by the African fascination with the mystical presence of animals. In his works, he likes to recreate his own form of magic.
My expression in the African idiom came about very young in my career. And a collector named Ladila Seji, I looked at his book, African Sculpture, and this is going back to the late 50s and early 60s, and I was so impressed with his work, and I was also impressed with Picasso's use of the African idiom and the imagination that he brought to it. Between those two, that really began setting the mold for my expression. And then, of course, I had a chance to visit Africa during the Second World Festival of Black Art and Culture, Black and African Art and Culture, and that, of course, was a profound influence. The prophecy is a very unique story. It began as just a statement of a new dimension I was moving into in the late 60s, and that was beginning to try and find a bridge between ancient Africa and contemporary existence. So that's what I was trying to bridge that gap. I never believed that we can go back into antiquity, but at the same time, I understood that we needed to maintain our roots and explore those roots because I believe that they're very futuristic. But the prophecy was created in that, with that concept in mind, and then evolved into my using it into my work with the theater. You know, it has shells and fragments of photographs, paint, and just to signifying a conglomeration of different ideas, materials. I employed plastic in here because plastic is a contemporary material. I employed a cowrie shell, which goes back to ancient Africa. So it's a bridge. It's using your Africa. You got to have a root, and that root is in Africa. I mean, you know, you cannot get away from that. Okay, that is your base, that's your strength.
And at Texas News 5, we understand what is important to you. We sort through the facts, the figures, the temperatures, and the scores to bring you the Texas perspective. Texas News 5. Texas and the world with you in mind. The teamwork of Jane McGarry, Brad Wright, Alice Carone, Scott Murray, and Harold Taft. When it's important to Texas, Texas News 5.
African-American artists have always been drawn to the brightly colored, bold patterns of African textiles. James Phillips paints repetitive patterns that are reminiscent of Cuba textiles.
The African heritage has influenced my work in terms of giving me a base to work from, in terms of the color, in terms of the imagery, in terms of all kinds of any kind of visual dynamic that you can think of.
Africa to me is a state of mind. It's a very rich continent with a very beautiful wildlife and very strong and spiritual people. My culture, I think, is my energy and the way that I express it through what I do. And I've done quite a bit of research in African wearable arts because in order for me to do any kind of artwork, it has to be something that's utilitarian. I was inspired to make hats because I wanted these hats. The only way that I could get them was to make them myself. So apparently I had the inner vision myself because as I create them, I know what I'm going for. I know the effect that I'm going for with the for the finished product. I wanted something regal,
that can be worn during the day. You know, most of the things that are sparkly or whatever, really dressy, can be worn in the evening or special events. But I wanted something regal that could be worn during the day and really not for anything special. Like if I was going to the market or something like that, I want to be able to look regal, you know. In dungarees, you know, if I wanted to wear dungarees, I could, you know, look regal still, you know.
One of the things that I just feel so strongly that every African American needs to do is to go to Africa. Because even though it sounds cliche, you go there and you see so many things about yourselves. You see so many things that have changed about yourself because you're an American. But you see so many African qualities in your personality and your lifestyle. As I reflect back on my life, my work in the last 20 years, I know that Africa is always the base of it. Whether I'm working abstractly or whether I'm working figuratively, I see that the way I use colors, the symbolism of always going back to symbols that I find in Africa, and always being into or concerned with community is one of the elements, and I think that's impacted on my work. The mask is one of the most important forms of artistic expression in the traditional art. And the mask was very, very important because, first of all, it's the head. The brain is in the head. The brain controls everything, directs everything. And the other thing is that the face can have so many different expressions on it. So I thought that the mask, being a universal form in the traditional African culture, it would be a good form to start with in exploring it in these many different patterns and symbols and things that I did with it.
The Dogon of Mali have been a source of study for many African American artists. Works of African art are masterful expressions of three-dimensional form. The cultural legacies that surround their creation provides black artists with an unending source of inspiration.
The mystique of the Madonna and Child has a universal quality about it. Not only is it looked upon as just a religious deity in Christianity, but it also transfers to even earlier times when people were worshiping the goddess of love, Venus, and the goddess of wisdom, Isis, and Ishtar. So they all have many faces, but they are the same person, or the same deity. Jubilee in this painting is that, and also other things. She's the personification of the earth itself.
Africa, to me, is part memory and part being in touch with my physical creation, my own body, and relying on the memory and the genes of my ancestors through myself to express what Africa is.
Shiitake mushrooms are one of the most interesting members of the order Agaricales.
Africa's contribution is rhythm. You know, not that African music doesn't have melody or harmony, but fantastic, complex rhythmic patterns. Something that is like your heartbeat and mine. And everybody in the world, no matter whoever they are, respond to rhythm. Because rhythm is the soul of life, the whole universe itself. Everything that we do is in rhythm.
The presence of music forms a deep inspiration in African American life and art. Music, dance, drama, and costumes were inherited from the great public rituals of Africa. These basic elements of African life have become artistic components for American festival art.
But you know, when I travel to Africa, One of the things that had the strong impact on me was the fact that I saw so many different kinds of patterns. And this, of course, was what the people wore. And these things, I think, had a really strong impact on my work.
The dancers of Bahamian painter Amos Ferguson swing and sway into a festive beat. He creates lively images inspired by the Bahamian festival, Junkanoo. Pure music can be the artist inspiration as well. A swinging gospel group called Sweet Honey in the Rock was the inspiration for this work by Ed Love. Called Sweet Rockers, these pieces of sculpture visually interpret African-American music. For other artists like Everett Brown, music itself is the fundamental expression of the creative spirit. His musical instrument for 4 people, including a guitar, harp, drum, and rumba box, is a celebration of African-American creativity. The Bambara people of Mali use this antelope headdress in their annual planting festival. Public ceremonies associated with successful farming are a common African tradition. The African tradition of festivals takes on a lively, colorful presence in Caribbean and American celebrations, such as Carnival and Mardi Gras. This influence is seen in the depiction of Carnival by Haitian artist Rigaud Benoit, as he explores a ritual which welcomes spring. Flags are an important part of Haitian festivals. They are usually covered with glass beads and sequins. Mardi Gras is the subject of folk artist John Landry. His miniature floats are made with beads collected from past parades, as well as cardboards and glitter. Landry lived in New Orleans all his life. His colorful little floats capture his lifelong fascination with Mardi Gras themes. The centerpiece of Black art ancestral legacy is the Mbari. This Mbari is an African-American artist interpretation of a traditional public shrine in West Africa.
We decided to include an Mbari in Black art ancestral legacy because we thought it was very important to have a symbol of the cohesiveness of the African-American community. And the Mbari, as created by the Igbo, is in fact that. It's a symbol of the unity of spirit of a village. So what better way to show the continuity between the African past and the African-American present than to create an African-American Mbari.
Actually, Mbari does mean festival of life. The building of the Mbari house is a very communal activity where most of the community participate in some form or fashion. Usually there is an architect who designs the initial structure, and our architect is George Smith.
None of this was drawn out, but I had an idea of what I wanted to put here, and I had an idea of what the Mbari would accept, things that I've done before. Again, we're dealing with an African-American experience and not a total African experience.
I think African-American identity springs forth from a combination of influences based in the spiritual foundation of the community. And that is a combination of religious practices, of familial ties, of the continuity of language, traditional Black music.
Beyond a shadow of a doubt, my inspiration comes from God. It was given to me when I asked, I said I want to make a staff, and he blessed me with that, because before that I had no talent to speak of. I couldn't sing, couldn't dance, I couldn't do anything. And when I asked him, I said I wanted to make a staff, and he blessed me with it.
Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. All around me it looks so shiny. I ask my Lord if all were mine. There ain't but one way that crosses track. It runs to heaven and runs right back. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray.
This program was presented by the Mary Kay Foundation in conjunction with the Dallas Museum of Art. It was produced by KXAS TV, Channel 5.